Greetings, friends. My name is Pavel Stelmach, and now we will dive in the top news of this day. Russia continues its systematic shutting of civilian Ukrainian cities. For example, this night Dnipro, Smila, Lviv, Lutsk, Kolomea, Kramatorsk and Zaporizhia and Kharkiv regions were shelled. Just look at the map and understand how big the distances are between these cities. I don't know if there are any air defense systems that can defend such a huge area. Most of the missiles and drones are destroyed by the defense forces of Ukraine in the air, but some still hit. In addition, fragments of downed missiles pose a danger. Last night, 16 of 28 missiles were intercepted by Ukrainian air defense. Maybe not too much, but Russia uses different types of missiles, among them inaccurate ones. That's why so many civilians were killed during these bombardments, as Russian attacks are aimed primarily at civilian objects. Their goal is to kill and maim Ukrainians, break their will to resist, and take revenge for defeats at the front line.
Russian terrorists must feel only one thing: they will be destroyed. And one more thing: behind every report of shelling and injuries of our people, there are stories of heroism of our Ukrainian doctors and nurses working in the frontline areas. I'm grateful to all our medical workers who, despite everything, save lives.
There is no completely safe place in Ukraine, so do not ignore the warning signals. And one more thing: for shelling, Russia uses strategic aviation. Their takeoffs are fixed in a few hours before launching missiles. Then launched rockets fly for another couple of hours. That is, the fact that Russia will strike has been known to the Ukrainian military at 6 or 7 hours in advance. Just a question: for what the Russians generally count on? That in the decision-making centers, in the barracks, at military facilities, we will not patiently sit and wait for missiles at all this time. Is there really at least one person who believes that with this approach it is possible to destroy some important military target? But if the goal is a residential high-rise building, a shopping center or a grain elevator, then yes, such tactics will also work. So for now, for Ukrainian, caution saves lives. To reduce this threat, Ukraine needs more modern air defense systems, more long-range missiles, and other help to expel the invader from our land. There are reports in some mass media about the footholds of the defense forces at left bank of Dnipro River in Kherson region. But you know, as our general staff reports, separate units perform tasks in the lower reaches at the Dnipro and on the left bank, but there is currently no question of stable control on that territory. The aggressor seeks to keep the occupied and illegally annexed Ukrainian territories because they are almost the only achievement of Putin's aggression against the backdrop of the failure of the goals declared at the beginning of the war. The Russians on the battlefield pay no regard to the insane number of losses of their soldiers and equipment. Desperate, the Kremlin resorts to war crimes, the destruction of the Kakhovka HPP, mining, the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, and other dangerous industrial facilities. Constant missile attacks on civilians, etc. The enemy increases information pressure on Ukrainians and their partners, conducts propaganda to demoralize, engages in nuclear blackmail to intimidate, imposes futile peace negotiations to deceive and keep the occupied territories. But acquiring a bridgehead on an enemy-controlled shore is an extremely difficult task. The command takes care of personnel and acts according to plans and calculations based on the operational situation. There are no grounds for informational euphoria.
There is no cause for excitement. I just came back from those places. In order to land there, not to be destroyed, and also to gain a foothold, we need to clear the territory and repel the enemy. We protect people. Yes, certain units performed a certain task there. This is predictable, because our goal is to return all temporarily occupied territories. So we are working on this possibility everywhere. Hanna Mahler, Deputy Minister of Defense of Ukraine, on Telegram.
When there are really important victories in this area, an official message will appear. One of the important prerequisites for the success of combat work is informational silence. Fanning passions around the so-called bridgeheads helps the enemy, not the defenders of Ukraine. All temporarily occupied territories will be liberated as soon as favorable circumstances arise for the defense forces of Ukraine. The Russian administration imposed a harsh occupation regime on some Ukrainians based on contempt, lawlessness and terror. Ukrainians hate the occupiers and often passive and active resistance. Forced passportizing in the occupation territories continues. In order to replenish its large-scale casualties, the adversary continues to conduct covert mobilization in the temporary occupied territories of Ukraine. In particular, the occupation pseudo-government obliged all men at state-owned enterprises in the city of Starobilsk in Luhansk region to undergo a medical examination and register for military service. The Moscow regime continues to illegally integrate the population of temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine into its cultural and educational space. In addition, the Russian occupation administration organized the educational process according to the Russian curriculum by opening a school in Bechtere. Children from the nearest settlements were obliged to study in the school. In order to force students to attend the school, according to the Russian curriculum, parents are intimidated by administrative liability for absences. The invaders create unbearable conditions for Ukrainians who refuse Russian documents. Preparations for pseudo-elections in the occupation territory are ongoing. Ukrainians are being forced to participate in this action, which primarily has a propaganda purpose. From autumn, the occupiers will force Ukrainian children under occupation to attend schools, which have been turned into factories for brainwashing by Russism. That concludes our today's video. Thank you for watching. Stay updated. Subscribe to our UATV English channel for more news from Ukraine. Your support is that really matters. Goodbye.